Welcome to That Bible Guy. Today I'm going to share with you two beliefs that changed my life. And I'm sharing them with you because I think that they will also transform your life. When you capture and take hold of these beliefs, they will change the outcome of your life. And they've radically done that with me. And what it is getting into the mind of God and thinking about the way God thinks of you is enough to enable us to transform and change. And I've shared before in the past that many times I had difficulties growing up in my life. That many times, like a lot of us, I felt lost. I felt a bit unwanted. I felt like I didn't quite fit in. I wasn't very good at things that other people were, and you didn't have these skills or abilities. And I felt a bit lost and unwanted. And I think a couple of pivotal moments that I remember when I was about 17 or 18, maybe. I lived in a new house in Belfast. I'd moved off on my own, and we're in a house full of people that I didn't really know very well. I wasn't too bad at socialising initially, but once it came to getting to know you a bit deeper, I got quite insecure. And I remember a few moments where I walked down into the living room of the house, shared house, and a lot of people were there. And I remember being so uncomfortable in myself, I had to leave, where I just had to go up to my own bedroom. I didn't have that too often, but I remember that a few moments, and it was really, really hard. And in those moments, it's hard to get out of it. You just feel unvaluable. You feel unworthy. You feel like you maybe just shouldn't be here. As ridiculous as that may sound, and I remember other times as well, even in the early days when I became a Christian 24 years ago, almost. In the early days in the church, my wife would point out to me today that in those early days in the church, when I would go up and speak to people and, excuse me, fellowship with people, often my conversation would tail off at the end. I'd say something, but I remember it myself. I didn't expect people to listen. I just thought you're uninteresting. You're not very interesting. People don't want to hear from you. They want to hear from other people. You're just getting in the way. Hadn't really had that phrase in my mind for a while, but that's how I felt at times. You just get in the way. You're not liked or needed. It's not a nice way to feel, and I'm sure there's many people out there who feel the same way as I did at that time, and maybe still do. But these two beliefs changed my view of myself, my view of life, my view of the future. And it's fair to say they transformed my view of myself. I learned these two things. These thoughts as we get into the mind of God. The first one is in Acts 17:24, and it's this idea that God wanted, and not even just wanted me, he actually ran after me. And it means that he also runs after you as well. You may have heard that before, but it's true. God not only wants you, but he runs after you. It says in Acts 17, verse 24, that God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples built by human hands. So that's who he is. He's not served by human hands as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. From one man he made all nations that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out and find him, though he's not far from any one of us. This scripture told me that God has designed the world, he's designed your life to some extent, in order so that you would do what? Reach out and find him, though he's not far from each one of us. He's orchestrating your life in such a way that you'll actually reach out to find him because he wants to have a relationship with you. He doesn't want to force it upon you or make you feel obliged like you have to, but he wants to make you aware of his presence enough that you can respond to that and realize that he's been seeking you all along. The other scripture I really love, 2 Samuel 14, verse 14, it says, like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be recovered, so we must die. Doesn't start too positively, but that is not what God desires. Rather, he devises ways so that a banished person does not remain banished from him. God's orchestrating the world again and again so that the person who's far from him won't remain far from him. Do you realize the impact that has on your life when you start to believe and see around you that that's true, that God's going out of his way to get your attention, to draw you to him? And I realize this. God not only wants me, but he's actively running after me. This is profound. The other one as well then, because we all feel flawed and we feel like we're not very valuable and we've got many things that aren't good about us. But this other scripture really powerfully transformed the way I viewed my life and even my Christian life. I got this many years after becoming a Christian. It said in Ephesians 1, and it's this idea that God made us to be perfect. His goal is to look at us and see us as perfect. Ephesians 1 verse 4, for he chose us in him, Jesus, before the creation of the world to be holy and blameless in his sight. In love he predestined us for the adoption to sonship through Jesus Christ in accordance with his pleasure and will. Just so you understand, God's not doing it obligingly. He's not doing it because he's no other choice. It's his own pleasure and will, as it says there, to make us, choose us before the creation of the world, before sin entered the world. He wanted to make us, as it says there, holy and blameless in his sight, and be predestined to be adopted as his sons and daughters. He runs after us, he wants us, he runs after us, and in his eyes we are perfect. He wants to make it so that we are perfect. And all those feelings I had about myself can all be obliterated by this idea that the God who made me runs after me, wants me, but also that he has wiped away my sin if I wish, and I can become perfect in his eyes. He wants to see me as perfect. These are basic thoughts in some ways, but in other ways they're extremely powerful. Imagine how believing these thoughts, these things that I shared today, imagine how those things could change your life if you read them, if you took them to heart, and you really meditated and then eventually held to, with deep conviction, those things to be true. I must say, they have transformed my life to believe these things. Every day it influences how I live my life. That the God of the universe, that I will meet again one day, that put me here, that knit me together in my mother's womb, that he wants me, he runs after me, he wanted to make me perfect in his eyes, he wanted to adopt me as his son, he wanted me in his family. Nothing else matters. If that's true, it has got the power to overcome any difficulties we have in our life. And it's helped me to get off the performance treadmill in my life. I must admit, I slip into it now and again. I slip into wanting to perform. It's something that's always within me to some extent, but it's very small now compared to what it could have been and what it was. This love of God, this idea that he runs after me, has eradicated that need to constantly perform to win people over, because I already know of God's love. You can read about it in the scriptures. Hope these scriptures would help us today. Please look at them. Let me know the impact that they've had in your life. If you've liked this video, please hit like. Please share it on for other people. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And let's get his word out there.